What happened to Qatar's World Cup stadiums after 2022? When Qatar hosted the 2022 FIFA World Cup, the whole world was watching. Not just because of Messi, not just because of Argentina, not just because of Morocco's historic run, but because Qatar built one of the most expensive and most unique World Cup projects football had ever seen. 8 stadiums, all close to Doha. Some brand new, some upgraded, some designed to stay forever, and one stadium designed to disappear. After the final whistle, after Messi lifted the trophy, after the fans went home, one big question remained. What happened to all those stadiums? Are they still being used? Did Qatar abandon them? Or did they actually have a plan? Let's break down every Qatar World Cup stadium, the biggest match played there, and what happened to it after the tournament. First, Lusail Stadium. This is the big one. Lusail Stadium was the crown jewel of the Qatar World Cup. It was the largest stadium of the tournament and the place where the 2022 World Cup final was played. And not just any final. Argentina versus France, Messi versus Mbappe. One of the greatest football matches ever played. Argentina went ahead, France came back, Mbappe scored a hat trick, Messi scored again, and the game went all the way to penalties. Then Argentina won, and Lionel Messi finally lifted the World Cup. That moment alone made Lusail Stadium legendary forever. But after the World Cup, Lusail did not just disappear. It continued to host major football events. One of the biggest matches after the World Cup was the 2023 AFC Asian Cup final, where Qatar beat Jordan 3-1 and became Asian champions again. So Lusail Stadium is still active, but Qatar's long-term plan is not to keep it exactly the same forever. The plan has been to reduce the capacity and turn parts of the stadium into community spaces, shops, schools, cafes, health facilities, and other services. So Lusail is not abandoned. It is still one of Qatar's most important stadiums, but its future is supposed to be more than just football. Next, Al Bayt Stadium. This stadium is one of the most beautiful stadiums Qatar built. It was designed to look like a traditional Bedouin tent, representing desert culture and Qatari history. And this stadium hosted the opening match of the 2022 World Cup, Qatar versus Ecuador. That was the first time Qatar ever played in a World Cup, because they qualified automatically as the host nation. But the biggest matches at Al Bayt came later. England versus France was played here in the quarterfinals. That was the game where Harry Kane scored one penalty but missed another, and France knocked England out. Al Bayt also hosted France versus Morocco in the semi-final. That match was huge because Morocco had already made history by becoming the first African country to reach a World Cup semi-final. After the tournament, Al Bayt Stadium stayed active. It has hosted football matches, Asian Cup games, and other major events. But just like Lusail, Qatar planned to reduce the capacity and turn part of the stadium into other facilities. There have been plans connected to hotels, shopping areas, restaurants, and community use. So, Al Bayt is still working, but it is not just supposed to be a normal stadium forever. It is supposed to become part stadium, part public destination. Now let's talk about the most interesting one, Stadium 974. This stadium might be the most unique stadium in World Cup history. Why? Because it was built from shipping containers. The number 974 was not random either. It is Qatar's international phone code, and the stadium was built using hundreds of containers. But the biggest thing about Stadium 974 is this: it was built to be temporary. It was not supposed to stay forever. The idea was that after the World Cup, it could be dismantled and moved somewhere else, or reused for another project. That made it different from every other stadium. During the World Cup, Stadium 974 hosted some big matches. One of the biggest was Argentina versus Poland in the group stage. That was a huge game because Argentina needed to win to secure their place, and Messi was playing. Argentina won 2-0. It also hosted Brazil versus South Korea in the round of 16, where Brazil won 4-1 and Neymar scored. But after the World Cup, Stadium 974 became the biggest mystery. People expected it to be taken apart quickly, but it stayed standing longer than expected. So when people say, which Qatar stadium is not really in service anymore? Stadium 974 is the first one people mention. It was not built to be a permanent football home like the others. However, it has still been used again for some later events, including international football events. So, it is not as simple as saying it was completely abandoned. The truth is, Stadium 974 was designed as a temporary stadium, but Qatar kept it around longer than people expected. That makes it the most controversial and most talked about stadium from the 2022 World Cup. Next is Khalifa International Stadium. This stadium is different because Qatar did not build it from zero for the World Cup. Khalifa International Stadium already existed before the tournament. It was opened decades earlier and then renovated for the World Cup. This is Qatar's historic national stadium. During the World Cup, it hosted the third-place match between Croatia and Morocco. That was a huge match because Morocco had already shocked the world, and Croatia was trying to finish strong after another deep World Cup run. Croatia won 2-1 and finished third. After the World Cup, Khalifa International Stadium stayed active. This stadium is still one of Qatar's main venues. It is used for Qatar national team matches, domestic cup finals, international tournaments, and major sports events. So, out of all the Qatar World Cup stadiums, Khalifa is probably the easiest one to explain. It was important before the World Cup, it was important during the World Cup, and it is still important after the World Cup. Next, Education City Stadium. This stadium is located near universities and schools, which is why it is called Education City. During the World Cup, this stadium hosted one of the most famous upsets of the tournament, Spain versus Morocco. Spain had the ball for most of the game, but Morocco defended like warriors. The game went to penalties, and Morocco won. That victory sent Morocco to the quarterfinals and shocked the football world. Education City Stadium also hosted other big matches, but that Spain versus Morocco match is the one people remember the most. After the World Cup, the stadium continued to be used. It hosted Asian Cup matches and other football events. Its location makes it useful because it is part of a bigger education and community area. So this stadium is still active, but it also has a wider purpose beyond just hosting professional football. Next is Ahmad bin Ali Stadium. This stadium is home to Al Rayyan SC, one of Qatar's biggest football clubs. During the World Cup, one of the biggest matches played here was Argentina versus Australia in the round of 16. Argentina won 2-1, but Australia almost shocked them near the end. That match was important because Argentina were on their way to winning the whole tournament. After the World Cup, Ahmad bin Ali Stadium continued being used as a club stadium. That means it did not have the same problem as some other World Cup stadiums around the world, where there is no team to use them after the tournament. Al Rayyan already had a reason to use it, so this stadium is still working. It hosts local league matches, cup games, and other football events. Next is Al Janoub Stadium. This stadium is in Al Wakra, and it became the home of Al Wakra SC. The design was inspired by boats connected to Qatar's maritime history. During the World Cup, one of the biggest matches there was Australia versus Denmark. That game was huge because Australia won 1-0 and qualified for the knockout stage. Most people expected Denmark to go through, but Australia shocked them. After the World Cup, Al Janoub Stadium stayed active as a club stadium. Al Wakra SC uses it for domestic football. So again, this stadium did not just sit empty, it became part of Qatar's local football system. Next is Al Thumama Stadium. This stadium had one of the most meaningful designs. It was inspired by the Gafia, a traditional cap worn by men and boys in the region. But what made Al Thumama Stadium famous was the match it hosted, Morocco versus Portugal. Cristiano Ronaldo came off the bench, Portugal were desperate, but Morocco won 1-0. That win made Morocco the first African nation to reach a World Cup semifinal. That moment made Al Thumama one of the most historic stadiums in African and Arab football history. After the tournament, Al Thumama continued to be used for football matches and other events. There were also long-term plans to reduce seating and use parts of the stadium area for community and sports-related facilities. So it is still active, but it is also part of Qatar's bigger legacy plan. Now, when you look at all 8 stadiums, the story becomes clearer. Qatar did not simply build 8 stadiums and throw them away. Most of them are still being used. Lusail is still hosting major finals. Al Bayt is still hosting big events. Khalifa International is still one of the country's main stadiums. Education City is still active. Ahmad bin Ali is used by Al Rayyan. Al Janoub is used by Al Wakra. Al Thumama is still used for football and events. The only stadium that is truly different is Stadium 974. That was the temporary one. That was the stadium built to be taken apart. But even that stadium did not disappear right away. So the real answer is this. Qatar's World Cup stadiums did not all become abandoned. Most of them are still working. Some became club stadiums, some still host national team games. Some host Asian tournaments, some are being turned into community spaces. And one stadium became a symbol of a new idea, a World Cup stadium that does not have to last forever. The 2022 World Cup ended with Messi lifting the trophy, but the stadium stayed behind. And today, each one tells a different story. Some tell the story of history, some tell the story of legacy, and one tells the story of a stadium that was built to disappear.